Janie. I wanted to show you how I did these vellum flowers that I used on this canvas. Let me see if I can get a good look there. They're actually very easy and they turn out so pretty. And I will have some more pictures for you to look at of other ones. I just used Vellum and Lindy stamp gang. And here are a few other versions of the flowers. And for these, I used the Tim Holtz Tattered Florals die, just as they are, but on the shapes that look like this, I did go one step further and cut slits into it. I used 4 at a time and line them up like so, and then take your scissors and just cut slits towards the center. And you don't want to go all the way, but just cut small slits towards the center, and that will help the petals loosen up and curl up more when we spray them with the Lindy stamp gang. And I'll show you how we do this flower, and on this one I colored it yellow with pink in the middle. I take 4 of these shapes from the Tim Holtz Tattered Florals, and I cut the slits in them, just as I showed you. And I'm going to spray them with Lindy Stamp Gang sprays. This one is Alpine Ice Rose, and I'm also going to spritz a little bit of the Rambling Rose Pink on there. I think just a little bit of the variation of colors makes it even prettier. And I won't spray the whole thing. If it's blotchy in some areas, that's fine, because once you layer it together, that adds some highlights or some a different color to it that makes it look even prettier. So with the Alpine Ice Rose, I'm going to shake it up, and once I spray them, they'll start to curl on their own. And I spray the front and the back, but I'm going to let them dry a little bit first. That was the Alpine Ice Rose. I'm going to give them just a few squirts of the Rambling Rose Pink. Just see how they're already curling. We don't have to do anything. It already curls by itself because of the wet on the vellum. This is not the proper way to squirt this. If you squirt it this way a lot, then the cap may clog up, because it's really not the way you're supposed to do it. But if you just barely spritz some out, it gets just a little bit of color on there. And then you can use just your hands or get some flowers and open it back up and get the other side wet. You can flatten it out a little, or you can just wait. But I like to go ahead and flatten it a little. Just open it up, and I'm working on the non-stick craft mat. And it doesn't have to be completely covered. I'm going to put them on another board to dry. Here's a quick tip. I use a clipboard, just a regular wooden clipboard, and put my smaller non-stick craft mat on top of it, and so that if I'm working on something and need to pick it up and move it out of the way, it's easy to do that without, if I just had it on the mat, sometimes when you go to pick up the mat, stuff falls or gets messed up, and this way it dries flat for you. And I will do the same thing to these other petals, and you can already see that the mica in those Lindy Stamp Gangs has given a beautiful shine, and there's also pigment in there that's given it the color. And I'm going to get that to flatten out a little bit, and I'm just picking up the extra spray that's on the mat. I'm just going to let those dry. You can dry them with your heat gun. It doesn't cause them to curl anymore, which I thought it would, but it doesn't actually cause them to curl anymore. It just helps the spray dry faster. But I really don't think it was helping it to curl anymore. I think they were just curling from the wet, which does the work for you. You don't have to try to shape it much or anything. And then, since, well, I didn't get the bottom of that very well. And like I say, I'm not trying to get consistent or even. You just want some color. And since I have this already here, I'll just go ahead and take a few others. And I'll do some daisy shapes for you. I call that a daisy shape. And I like to do 3 per flower of the daisy shapes. And see how I'm just soaking up some of that glimmery goodness, and it doesn't have to be total coverage. That just adds to it. But I do like to get the backs, because when they curl like this, you end up seeing both sides, and it just looks much nicer when you have a little bit of color and mica powder on both sides. You could use your old baldy caps for your Lindy Stamp Gang and put it on each flower shape, but you don't have to. I think it's a little quicker, and you get a little more mottled effect when you spray it. And I'm just going to go ahead and spray a few more of these since I have it all out, so that we have a couple of these flowers started. Start out with tweezers. I never end up using them, not very long. I end up doing it with my hands. Just mop it all up. These little bitty flowers. And I'm just going to do one side of these because they usually stay a little flatter. And I'll do the same thing to these large petals. I used 3 of the large petals in each flower. Okay, now that I have some of these dry, I'll show you how to assemble the flowers. For a flower like this, I use 3 of the large petal shapes, 2 or 3 of the these petal shapes that we clipped apart a little bit, and 1 or 2 of the little ones. And it's just as easy as stacking them up. I'm going to use, because it's vellum and you're working with on top of a spray, sometimes the mica powder in the spray or the vellum doesn't want to hold as well with some glues. I like to use scrappy glue. I've used it for a long time, years, because my local scrapbook store carried it years ago, and I've just always been partial to it. Right now it's hard to find, but Heidi Swap is has this advertised, and I got this from Scrap-A-Dap-A-Doo. Glossy accents would work just as well. Any of your more aggressive glues, because you're working with vellum. And I just put a little bit in the center. Stagger the petals. And put a little more of this glue. I had it upside down so it would come out, and now it's wanting to go everywhere. I'm going to stagger these petals again. And I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure there for a few seconds. And I'm going to clean up my glue because it wanted to come out. It was getting close to the end of the bottle and didn't want to come out, so I turned it upside down and it kind of made a vacuum. So you have those 3. Then we'll take 2 of the smaller ones, and you're just putting a little glue, staggering the petals. And if you're not sure what I mean by staggering the petals, there's a gap between this petal and this petal, so when I lay this next flower down, I'll put the petal in where that gap would be. And that one's not quite in the middle, so I'll move it around just a tad. Glue this next one and stagger the petals. And to finish it off, I'm just going to put one of these small ones. Just like that, and you'll have to set it aside to dry for a few minutes because you can't manipulate it very much while it's wet because it will come apart. Also, here's a tip. I'd like to sometimes put one of my spray bottles on top just to add a little pressure to hold those layers together. Because the vellum wants to curl up, it's good to have just a little bit of pressure there to let them make contact while the glue is drying. And so, let me show you with the one that I already have done. When it's dry, you'll push the petals up, and you don't have to be gentle, just kind of scrunch them up, scrunch the smaller petals in, and then the larger petals. And then you can play with it a little bit. It still looks like a lovely flower. And let me show you what I do for the center of these. I've used all sorts of different things in the center of my flowers. I really like seed beads, or these tiny glass beads that are glass marbles, or really tiny micro beads. Those work well. The long bugle beads don't work, but if you get some broken bugle beads or the small ones, and you can usually find these pretty cheap, these work well. And then I also have these glass beads that are fairly transparent and have a glow about them. I got these in a set called the Black and White Glass Bead Set at Scrap-A-Dap-A-Doo, and it comes with a set of some white beads and some black beads, of course. And I use black beads on other flowers, not these particular ones right now, but I've used the black beads on other flowers. And here you can see on this big flower where I used the micro beads. And on this one, I think I'm just going to use some of these white broken bugle beads or short bugle beads. And to do that, I'm just going to put a little glue in the center. And by little, I mean that. And then pour my beads. These beads don't come in these bags, but you can buy bags separately at Scrap-A-Dab-A-Doo. They come in a little plastic case, but by the time you open that and close it a few times, it doesn't want to work that well. So I just put them in bags. I pour more than I need and just kind of press the beads into it. And you'll let that dry for a few minutes, and then you can pour off the excess. Sometimes you can do it right away. Let's see how that works. Yep, that's fine. And then you can use your finger or your needle tool or stick pin and just kind of move those around where you would like them to be. Sometimes it helps if you can see it instead of holding it up in front of you. And I'll let that dry. The glue will dry clear and you'll just see the beads. So we did the large flower, and here's one that the petals were really curled, and I used 3 of the smaller flowers in the middle just because that's what I had left over, so that's what I used. But I kind of like the ones where you just put 2 of the smaller ones of the ones that were clipped, and then 1 of those really small ones. But it's all up to what you like. It all looks good. That's the thing about these, is you can't really mess them up because they all look good together, no matter what you put together.